All right. So happy Tuesday. Welcome to our gut health presentation for April. My name is Brandee Ellis. I'm the registered dietitian nutritionist at the club at Hearst. I'm excited to be here today. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'll go into some more when we see the presentation. I'm also a health coach, and I work with the fine people at the club. And so if you work at Hearst, you probably know them as well. And today we're just going to get into the science behind it, what is going to help you feel better if you're discovering little things here and there, or even if you're not, just kind of like looking at how we can do things a little bit better and keep ourselves feeling good, staying healthy, our immune system staying strong, and maybe even touch upon a little myths here and there, the things that you've heard of. Now, this is pretty informal in the sense of if you have questions, please feel free to write it in the chat. I'm going to bring up the chat now so that I might not see it while I'm talking and with the presentation because I'm going to share my screen, but I'll definitely come in after when we have time. So anything that comes up, please feel free to write it in, any kind of questions. And if I don't know, I'll definitely look up the answers. And even if I need to get back to you, email you, whatever it is. So without further, just kind of making, without going any further, let's get this started. Let me share my screen. All right. So welcome again. Let's go ahead and get started with this presentation. So your gut health and your immune system, that's what we're talking about today. And again, my name is Brandee Ellis, and I'm the registered dietitian nutritionist at the club at Hearst. I'm certified through the state of New York, and I'm also a registered yoga teacher and a health coach. So some other things about me, I've worked in different corporate settings all over the city and in different areas. I've worked in cooking demos and nutrition presentations like this, virtual, and when we used to be in person. Nowadays, these are all kind of online, which has its pluses and minuses, right? It's kind of a crazy world, talking to a screen, talking to all of you, and sometimes I make jokes, right? And I hope that they're funny, or I hope that you laugh, and I don't really know, don't always get feedback, and it's just kind of, Zoom life. And also my Wi-Fi has been a little funky, so I should just mention that. So please bear with me, stay with me. I'll come back in if it drops out or something happens. All right. So let's go further with this. Welcome if you're just joining us. We're just getting started. And here's our overview. So gut health has become a popular topic of interest in the last couple of decades, like kind of what's going on with that. A little bit of the digestive system overview. We won't get too science heavy, but I want you to kind of understand the process if for some reason it's kind of fuzzy to you. We'll look at signs of an unhealthy gut, some common issues. We'll talk about bowel movements. Yes, we will. We'll get into that. And then what's really going on in there and some simple ways and food to increase your healthy gut bacteria. And then again, we'll have time at the end for questions and answers. But if you're thinking of something while I'm talking, I'm not going to see it right now, but you can throw it in the chat. And you can throw it to me directly or to everyone. I don't mind personal ones. I won't say your name, and we can get into it at the end. All right. So it's been a big thing right now. Gut health, there's books, there's websites. It's all over the news. And I think it's just kind of like this popular thing that's coming up. It's like, what's going on? But also I think that our food has changed a lot and our digestive system really hasn't changed much. And so the things that we're eating may be upsetting us. And then there's also a lot more allergies coming out. And so again, I think it's just one of those popular things that we're jumping on and trying to figure out what's going to help us feel better. Like, is it our mind? Is it our body not moving? Is it our food? And what about our food? Where is it going? And what exactly is going on in there? Especially if you didn't have those courses in school or you didn't pay attention, right? What exactly is happening? So this is my job to kind of hopefully make it a little easier for you today to understand whether these things are fads or myths or whether you should be paying attention to them. So research does suggest that the microbiome in the gut, in the intestinal system, in the digestive tract plays a role in determining everything from your weight to behavior. Like they're assuming that there's so much going on down there but there's still so much more research to do. There's still so much more that we don't know. So you'll see sometimes I'll say this is what the research shows so far. This is what we think, but this is not maybe 100% right now. So usually this describes a function of balance and bacteria of the many parts of the gastrointestinal tract. And usually it includes the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines that all work together to allow us to eat and to digest food without discomfort. However, for 70 million people in the US, that is not the case and have constant or frequent occurring discomfort when they eat food, whether that's bloating or diarrhea, constipation, or just an upset stomach. And this is something that's very common. Actually, I just had a few client consultations yesterday, and I think 2 of the 5 were with discomfort with just digesting food. Not sure if it's allergies, not sure if it's just the food that they're eating isn't, good food, whatever it is. Just know that your gut microbiome is as unique as your fingerprints. So what might be good for me might not be good for you. So these are just generalizations. They're just kind of general terms. If you want more specific, I would say reach out to me specifically, or a dietitian, nutritionist, talk to a doctor, because everyone handles all these different foods so differently, as you probably already know. So just know that about 1.3% of the US 3 million people are diagnosed with IBD. Now, inflammatory bowel disease is a category in which we kind of throw people in, and it's either like Crohn's disease, which you can test for, and then the rest of it you can't really test for. It's like, oh, you've had an upset issue for years or problems. You probably have IBD because you have, these symptoms and these things. Now, this is a huge increase in the last 15, 16, even 20 years. We're seeing more and more issues with this. And again, in my view, I think it's just because of the foods that we're eating, and we're making more and more convenience foods. We're making more and more foods that are getting further and further away from what the food actually looks like. But however, in the recent years, we are coming back a little full circle, right? You're seeing more and more like organic, or, sticking to more whole foods. And hopefully that trend keeps going, because we really need to get back to that somehow, some way. Now, there are over 54 million ambulatory visits every year, usually with a GI disease diagnosis. And there are thousands of GI cancers that are diagnosed every year. So this is really staggering, just kind of looking at the percentages in our country, just in our country alone, that are dealing with intestinal diseases, issues, problems, uncomfortableness, right? This is definitely happening. So again, go through the science really quickly. Again, this isn't going to get really deep, but just understand that digestive system, when we talk about digestive system, it usually starts in the mouth. And because of our salivary glands, we start having enzymes already starting to break down our food. So when we talk about chewing, right, there's always that, like, you should chew so many times, or you should chew whatever it is. Actually, there's some science behind that. It's not just to slow you down so you don't overeat or swallow big boluses of food, right, which is part of it. But it's also because your salivary glands will start to produce saliva. It has enzymes in it. It already starts breaking down, especially carbohydrates, in your mouth. One little thing I tell people who are using smoothies as their meal for the day, not just kind of like drinking or something, but if that's your meal and you want to really start the digestive process, normally the chewing starts the digestive process. So then your stomach starts to produce, oh, we're getting ready to eat. It gets ready for that. Now, when you drink your food, sometimes it goes right down. Your body didn't get all that ready, and it takes a little bit, and you might miss some of that digestion. And so sometimes in the beginning, it sounds really funny, but start kind of swishing the shake, whatever you're drinking or eating in your mouth, just to get that process going. Like, oh, we're getting ready to eat. Let's produce the enzymes. Let's get the acid going in our stomach. And that kind of just gives you a little bit, you don't have to do it for long. Just kind of swish it, bring it down. Some people like to chew their smoothie like a little chunkier. That's a good one too, right, to get it started. So it goes all the way down. You can see the esophagus, right? There's the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, also known as the colon, and then the anus, where it does come out at the end. We're going to do this really quickly. Just want you to see. So hopefully this works and you can hear it or see it. If not, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so that was pretty simple. Just wanted to process through that, right? So you could see how chewing and the bolus of food goes down. Very simple overview just to remind you of our digestive system. Um, so just a question here, think about it. How long is the small and large intestine together? I'll give you a second to kind of come up with an idea, maybe even chat it in the, write it in the box if you want. We can see who is closest in a minute. All right, so together they make up about 25 feet in most of us, even petite, even bigger people, 25 feet of intestinal like length. That is crazy. That is all wrapped inside of our abdomen area. So what are the signs of an unhealthy gut or intestine system, right? Now I want to underline here, right, is persistent digestive problems. So if you just have an upset stomach, you just have something going on, or maybe about a week or so, you're not really sure, that's not typical of like you have a disease or any kind of issues. This is more like persistent over weeks, months, maybe years, unfortunately. It's abdominal pain, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, heartburn, nausea, or vomiting, all the things we associate with getting sick or maybe having something bad in our food or something, but it's consistent. I have a client who is dealing with IBD issues, right? Because that's what the doctor has diagnosed her with and some other things. And every time she eats, it's almost like whenever she goes on vacation or she goes somewhere where she's not home or she can't go back home, she's like, I have to bring my bigger pants because she's like, I get so bloated. I'm literally like 2 sizes bigger. And I was at first like, wow, that's a big difference, right? But it's becoming more and more common that I'm seeing people say the same thing. Like, I really am uncomfortable. It is almost painful. That makes me I don't even want to eat anymore. So hopefully none of you are experiencing this, but if you are, definitely see your doctor, dietitian, right? Because this is definitely telling you something's going on. Now, you can also see weight loss without a good reason, like you're not trying to diet, something is just happening, you're eating all the foods, but you're probably experiencing diarrhea a little bit more. If you have any blood in the stool, any black stool, right, that means that there's blood higher up. Have any severe vomiting, stomach aches, trouble swallowing food, pain in the throat or chest, or jaundice. And any of these symptoms, please again, contact your doctor, or if you know somebody in your family, or if you're having kind of trouble with that. So typically on average, how long does it take to digest food from the time that you eat it and you put it in your mouth to the time that you excrete it in the toilet, right? How long do you think that is? And I've seen answers from 1 day to 1 week to 12 days to whatever you think it is. Let's talk about it. Okay, so here's your timeline. It varies. Yes, it does vary, especially between men and women. But after you eat it, it takes about 6 to 8 hours for it to pass through your stomach and your small intestine. So that's not too bad. But then the food enters your large intestine and it takes further digestion, absorption of water, right? And then finally elimination of undigested food. So it takes about 36 hours for your food to move through the colon itself, just the colon, the large intestine, and then about 6 to 8 from it to pass through your stomach and intestine, your small intestine. So it could take anywhere from about 2 to 5 days, depending on the individual, depending on, I like to say, depending on how much water and fiber water you're drinking, fiber you're eating, how much movement you are doing, or even just kind of emotional distress, right? Sometimes that can force things through a little bit quicker. All right. So here's some common digestive issues. One thing I notice right off the bat when I look at my clients' food logs or I talk to them is there is a lack of fiber and water. So that can really disrupt normal colon movement. And we'll get into how much fiber do we need to eat, right? What is it? What is normal? What is good? Constipation is a big one. Americans spend millions of dollars on laxatives. And it's amazing to me that, well, we're using this a lot, right? Because we're not eating the foods that we need to eat. And a lot of people I see are going to the bathroom once every 2 days, once every other day, maybe 3 times a week, right? It sounds like, oh, that's really uncommon, but it's becoming more and more common as I see more and more people. And I start to see these larger numbers of like, oh, and they have used laxatives because one, it's uncomfortable, right? You don't want to sit there having to go, we all know what that feels like. We've all been through it, but it becomes to a point where if you're not eating the right foods and you're not moving, whatever it is that you need, right? You start depending on it, almost like sleep aids. You start depending on laxatives. And then this also can make the gut dependent, right? So then all of a sudden the gut's like, well, I don't have to really do any work because I know you're going to take this pill or this chew tablet. And so then it starts to lose what it really does. It's almost like if for some reason you never got off the couch, right? You did everything from the couch, never got off. You just slept there, you ate there. All of a sudden your legs would be like, well, what am I doing? Right? The muscle would atrophy. You would to lose kind of like the balance of walking and being able to use your feet and stabilizing the ankles and the knees, right? So all of these things, think about your body the same way. When you're not eating the foods that your body needs to do what it needs to do, it actually does start to lose the ability to process those. And I personally, looking at the research, think that's where some of our colon diseases have come from. We don't eat a lot of fiber. And so our colon stops working in some ways. That creates more problems. And some of the laxatives that are prescribed or used constantly are Metamucil, which Metamucil I don't mind so much. Milk of magnesia and some other forms of magnesium aren't so bad. Miralax, castor oil, all of these are things that are used constantly. I would say just, you can have them on hand if needed, but try not to overuse them if you can. So another thing I want to mention, as we age, peristalsis in the intestines does slow down. Peristalsis is that movement, that wave-like contractions. So the intestines actually do help kind of move food along. And those wave-like villi in there kind of absorb nutrients and help push things along. Now, as you get older, just like many other things, it slows down. It makes food a little bit harder to absorb. And so with older individuals just generally moving less, eating less food, drinking less water, and becoming older, all of these things kind of create this perfect environment in the sense of like decreasing absorption of food and the way that the intestines work. So we find that a lot of individuals are admitted to hospitals because they will faint on the toilet. And this was one, even way back when I was in school, this was one that was like, the constipation is high in older individuals. The heart rate and the blood pressure might be a little higher or lower depending, and they squeeze and they push, right? And they pushing on the toilet to try to make something come out. And that increase in that tension skyrockets the blood pressure, and it's just too much. They can't get the blood flow and they actually end up fainting over on the toilet. So this is one of the big things that I'm always like with my parents, with everybody. I'm like, please drink water, please move your body, all these things. IBD-S, IBD, the disorder and the syndrome, depending on how long it's occurring for, is very common. And like I said earlier, I alluded to, there's really no test for this. It's kind of like if you have these symptoms that are persistent and nothing else comes up in a test like celiac disease or allergies, or you don't have bacteria when they do the colonoscopy or something like that, or some kind of issue in there, this is what they throw you in. They throw you in this and they say, well, it's been persistent. I don't find any bacteria, any, things going on in your colon. And we did the colonoscopy. We checked you for all these things. The cause is unknown. It could be genetics. It could be severe stress. It could be early trauma. It could be nervous system, an allergy. All of these things can contribute. And you just kind of hopefully go one by one and look at, checking off the boxes, kind of like, is this me? Possibly no. Is this me? Possibly no, going through. But I do find that diet and nutrition is the savior for a lot of things that we experience in life. It's very highly individual. What one person can digest, like we mentioned before, another person cannot. It's all about eliminating and just trying to see what's going on. And a lot of times I end up putting clients, on either a low FODMAP diet, which is just very, it's a lower sugar diet in some ways, of the bigger sugars, oligosaccharides. And that way, because those are harder to process and those might be causing issues in the diet, or an elimination diet where we eliminate a lot of foods that cause issues, and then we kind of throw them back in slowly, and you kind of see which one works, what's causing problems. This just gives you more awareness about your diet. You could do this on your own, but it's also really great to be led by a dietitian or nutritionist, a doctor, even if they specialize in this, to help you kind of figure out, hone in, and really just get you to feel better about eating. Because eating, we do a lot, and most of us enjoy eating most of the time, right? So we want to keep it as happy as possible. There's some other digestive disorders that I've seen. I throw the leaky gut syndrome in there because this is one that I get questions on a lot. I want to say that this is a phenomenon that occurs because of the way our cells are lined in the digestive tract. They're not like touching completely and they're not overlapping. So there's nothing that goes through. We do need to allow certain substances to go through. However, they're saying that these are loose and it lets too much go through. This is not believed across the science because the science really isn't backed up. I know there's books on it. I know there's doctors that specialize in it. However, the science isn't there. So if you believe that you do this, you believe that you have this and you've seen a doctor and this is something that you're working on, then as long as you are healthy and feeling okay with that and working with a doctor. But for the most part, the science isn't there. I'm not really sure how true this is or if this is just still a hypothesis in the making. Celiac disease, gluten sensitivity, right? This is an immune reaction to gluten. This is not just like, oh, gluten makes me bloated. No, this is a serious immune system is attacking your cells because of this gluten. And it's very sensitive to this. A classic symptom is diarrhea. Most of the time, these people are, if one speck, I mean, like, you clean off the counter and you think you wiped it down and there's a speck of gluten of wheat from the bread that you cut and they get this on their food, their digestive system will react right away. So literally it is down to a microscopic speck of gluten that can bother them. Gastroenteritis is an inflammation. So anything that's like an itis is an inflammation of the lining of intestines, usually caused by a virus, bacteria, or parasites. If you've been traveling, if you got something really bad, something from somebody who else has been traveling, right? So this can cause an inflammation. This can be taken care of and seen with a doctor. Diverticulitis and losis. These are big. I know many older individuals, and even not even older actually, mid-age and up, who have this and who are seeing this. And these are little pulches that develop in your digestive tract. So once it becomes a condition, it's the losis, right? Once it becomes something where you have multiple of these and it's starting to cause problems and you may need surgery or you may need other things, this is called diverticulosis. And then also cancer, of course, of any of the digestive parts. So let's get into the meat of this, right? Pun intended. But what is enough fiber? So the average American eats about how many grams a day do you think that the average American eats? And you can just kind of think about this. You can write it in the chat. You can have fun with it, right? Anywhere from 18 to 50 years eats about 10 to 15 grams a day. 10 to 15 grams, not really a lot, but that's the typical American diet for you. Now the recommendation is about 21 to 25, 25 to 38 for men, 21 to 30 grams for men who are older. Sorry about that. And so that's a big difference when you look at that. Like we're really not eating a lot of fiber. And it's like, well, what are we eating? We're eating a lot of processed foods, right? And when we process foods, we take out the fiber of a lot of these foods, especially our grains. We don't eat a lot of beans and lentils things. So that's fiber right there. Vegetables, that's fiber. So when you look at like the cheese and the dairy and the meats and the things that we're eating, we're not eating a lot of fiber. So this is what it looks like. Now, I'm weird and I am a dietitian, obviously, and I focus on fiber, and I actually recommend more than the amount. And I think slowly over time, again, not all at once should you be upping from 10 grams to 40 grams, but slowly over time, as you change your habits into healthier habits and look at your food, you will do this easier. It's not like, oh, how do I fit in all that fiber? It actually just comes with eating healthier, and you start to develop a better digestive system and able to adapt to this. The microbiome in your gut adapts. You don't have all of this, extra bloating or gas and things that may come with overnight changing your system. But how do you do that really, right? What does that look like? So this is a sample I like to kind of say, like, this is what a sample could look like. You have some eggs, a little avocado, whole wheat toast in the morning. Maybe for a snack, you have some fresh raspberries. You have a salad for lunch. You can always throw on some chicken, some grilled chicken or some turkey or something tofu. You have in the afternoon, you have some hummus, some baby carrots, right? And then you have some For dinner, you have grilled chicken, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and some brown fiber, brown rice, brown fiber. That already right there is about 48 grams of fiber. You're almost at 50 grams of fiber. Now, again, this is in a great day and a great world, right? This is when you're eating well, but it's not that hard to do. So there's lots of foods that give you fiber if you're eating them in whole, whole amounts, the whole food. And I know you can do this. You can start small, and you can start with adding in a little bit more vegetables to your salad, maybe an extra cup of vegetables at dinner, or just kind of changing your white bread to whole wheat bread or to whole grain bread. It doesn't always have to be whole wheat, it could be whole grain of some sort. Little changes over time, right, will get you there and will help the digestive system perform better. So this is actually my favorite question I like to ask everybody, which is really weird, right? But how often do you move your bowels? You know why? Because what's coming out tells me what's going in. It tells me right there what I need to help you with. And this is really important. So when I ask clients and I ask you to think about, do I go once a day, twice a day, 4 times a day, every other day, right? What is exactly going on with these, with my body? And I should take note of how often I'm going to the bathroom, because this is very important. So yes, it is my job to talk about urine and feces. And guess what? Today I'm going to mention a little bit about urine and feces. So you're here just in time if you're just joining us. Let's talk about the Bristol stool chart. Okay, so nobody really wants to talk about this, so it's okay. Videos are off, but I just want you to look and see that you may experience all of these different types in our lifetime, right? We all have been there. But I'm hoping that most of the time when you do move your bowels, you're in the normal-ish 3 to 4 range, sometimes 5, and this kind of gives you just a nice overview of like, oh, huh, yeah, right. Like this happens. And sometimes you get a little mild diarrhea from something you ate that was spicy, or you went to a restaurant and it might have been maybe a little contaminated somehow, or maybe you haven't had water and you can tell that type 3 is kind of where you are today. You're like, oh, I'm usually doing so good, but I have a little kind of stiffness there, a little cracking, whatever you want to say about that, right? So this is a great chart, to a very common chart that doctors look at when they say, give me a stool sample and things of that nature, plus they can actually investigate a little bit more of the bacteria in the stool as well. Now, colors is a big thing. I have clients that all of a sudden drink beet juice and freak out because their bowel movement comes out red. A dark red is usually like, it's not even a red like bleeding. It's just usually like, you can tell it's almost the beet color. So just be aware of like some things that may affect your bowel movements from your food. Greens, if you eat a lot of kale, a lot of collard greens, if you eat a lot of asparagus or something, I don't know, a lot of greens, you'll see that there's in the super green section. Black, I've never eaten so much licorice that my bowel movement has come out black, but it can happen. Iron supplements, or sometimes if it's dark, right, it can be bleeding in the upper intestinal tract. So red, bright blood is usually in the lower, maybe possibly in the colon or the anus, but the darker blood is usually up further because it had longer to travel. So it oxidizes by the time it gets down. Those are things you definitely want to see your doctor about. Yellow, usually yellowish orange can show a malabsorption of fat. And you might be kind of, you'll actually see some of it's in the water will be like orange yellow circles of fat, and that means you're maybe not absorbing, or you took a pill that limits the absorption of fat, something like that. All right. So probiotics, antibiotics, this is a big one. Let's get into this, give you some more information here. So prebiotics, what are they? They actually are the food for your good bacteria in your gut. So this is vegetables and whole grains. Some of the fiber that we don't process really well gives nutrients, or not even nutrients, food for the good bacteria to do what they do, to keep them living, to keep them processing in your gut. So we can't always break these down, but we still want to ingest them so that our good bacteria can survive and do what they need to do. Again, this is typically high fiber foods such as bananas and onions and garlics and leeks and whole greens and leafy vegetables and beans, right? All of these great things that I keep talking about should be in your system. These are the prebiotics, the before, right? The helping out the system without any pills or any bacteria. And this can help. If you keep your healthy gut bacteria living, doing well, you feed it and that's going to help eliminate most of the harmful bacteria, right? Because they're not going to have a place to survive because all the thriving good bacteria is going to have all this food. So you're going to crowd it out. Now, the opposite, right? Probiotics is healthy bacteria normally found in the gut that we take from live cultures, and we add them into supplements or foods. You'll see them commonly in yogurt, kimchi, right? Some of the other fermented foods. Now, I just want to note that the microbe content is not really guaranteed. So I always think it's interesting with yogurt in packaging because we do have to package these, right? And I always wonder how much of the bacteria actually survive all the process of getting that food healthy or clean for us, let's just say. And then in these packages, and they can thrive without oxygen, so that's not an issue. But by the time they go through all that, how much is still alive in there? And it varies. I've seen research that says, there's still a lot of bacteria in there. And I've seen research that says, there's like no live bacteria in the yogurt or whatever it is that you're eating. So if that's how you're getting in your probiotics and they seem to be working for you and you feel good about it and, there's no issues, then that's fine. But just be aware that, you want to do the prebiotics of eating healthy. And then you can always supplement with these things if you need it. And then also probiotic supplements, which we all know about. I had a client yesterday tell me like, oh, I feel like I need a probiotic supplement. And then when I explained it, she's like, oh, but I feel like marketing and like, that's not what you hear on TV. Like you feel like you need a probiotic supplement, like you need a multivitamin. And I was like, well, yes, because they want to make money, right? But not everybody needs one and not every day, all the time. So I personally think that if you do need a probiotic because you've been in an antibiotic, or maybe you've been traveling or something just feels uncomfortable, then yeah, you could use a probiotic probably for a short amount of time, 1 to 2 weeks, maybe a month at the top, like tops, unless your doctor says different or you've seen a dietitian who says different, that's something else. But just in general, if you just kind of need a pick me up or something feels off, you haven't been eating right, you could do it for a few days, a week or two, and then you should be good replenishing that bacteria. So it just depends on your digestive issues, disorders, conditions, doctor's request, anything like that. If you are on an antibiotic, this is one thing I always say, take a probiotic. You have to take it kind of offset of the antibiotics. So sometimes antibiotics are 2 or 3 times a day. And yes, you are wiping it out every time, but you're not leaving it empty. Your intestines empty without, because the bad bacteria, right, is dying. The good bacteria is dying when the antibiotic. So you want to kind of use about 4 hours in between. Take the bad, and then take the good, and then take the bad, and it wipes it out. And then when you come off of it, you can stay on the probiotic for another week or so, or whatever it is that you feel you need to make sure that you don't have a relapse almost of infections, because now there's no really great bacteria in your system because you've wiped everything out. But make sure you talk to your doctor, of course, please, definitely. Obviously, with anything, we spend over billions of dollars on probiotic supplements as we do with vitamins and protein supplements. That is something that we love as Americans. We love quick, fast, convenient, easy ways to get healthy, to lose the weight, right? To feel better. So this is definitely something we spend money on. I want to just touch on what to look for in a probiotic. Remember that it's not controlled by the FDA, just like any other supplement, right? Protein, multivitamins. So you do want live active cultures. You do want to make sure that it's live. And GMP seal just means that the company's saying, hey, we're going to do a good job. We're going to do our best to make sure that what's in here, what we say is in here is in here. That's great and a nice addition. But what you really want to look for is the USP seal or the NSF seal, which is like third party verified. That means somebody else is verifying that's what's listed in there is actually in there. And there's no added, there's no other chemicals or anything else in there, because we've seen that a lot in some of these products. You'd be surprised. Supplements, protein supplements are the worst. The powders are filled with like arsenic and all kinds of metals and things like that if they're not verified. So please be careful. You want to look for about these general 7 core strains, unless your doctor says something else that you need particularly or stay away from. So these are the ones that you can look for. And then also bacteria count, I've seen 50 billion, 10, 100 billion, 1 billion. Whew, it's a lot, right? So typically 1 to 10 billion is fine. Anywhere in there. You don't have to go crazy spending $100 on 50 billion CFU count, all the bacteria strains in the world. It doesn't have to be that much. It can be simple, and it can be refrigerated or non-refrigerated. I've seen both do just as well. Can they be harmful? They're generally considered safe. Usually people who have compromised immune systems or something going on, it can aggravate, cause some issues. So there's always a risk, right? When we take something over the counter, when we take something prescribed even, there's always a risk. So please be very careful, do your research, look at the bottles, look at the companies, talk to your doctor, talk to a nutritionist or somebody else that you trust, right? Make sure you have a good plan going in. One more thing I want to mention is just kind of like the gut, right? We think of the gut as like, oh, it digests our food, but there's also something about that gut feeling, right? There is a connection. And just kind of looking at like, there's a lot of connections in the immune system in the gut. There's a lot of connections with the mind-body connections. And we can also look to see how our behavior is affected by our gut. I mean, even just think something simple as when you are constipated, how miserable are you, right? I mean, not just because it's uncomfortable, but just everything. Your whole mood, everything is off. Your body is like, this is not working for me. Your mind is everything. And so your mood is affected by how your gut feels. If you're going to the bathroom regularly, if you are moving your body, right, exercising, eating well, right, there's a whole connection there. Immune system is doing well and your mind feels good. So all of these things work in tandem, obviously, with our body. All of these things work in tandem. And then also there is some research that shows that the neurotransmitter GABA, which you've heard a lot of probably, that helps to regulate brain activity and can calm anxiety, actually starts within the gut. So they're saying a lot of this is actually starting in the gut that we didn't realize. And so if your gut is healthy, right, then you can be able to have a better, like calmer, healthier mind, hopefully, right? If there's no issues in between, there's so many things as a human that can change our mood, change our environment, change our insides. So again, there's just a lot of research on this connection. And I think it's really exciting to start seeing how much more our body does than we already know it does. It does so much more than that. And just know that stress, lack of sleep, anxiety can really worsen GI symptoms. So sometimes people eat well and they're just really, really high stress. Things are going on in their family or themselves or anything like that, right? That can really affect you. You can end up having constipation or diarrhea. And so these are things that you just want to be aware of. And again, it's a whole wellness concept, right? It's eating healthy, getting your sleep, drinking your water, moving your body, exercising, eating well, all of these things, laughing, smiling, these things that just make us who we are. All of these things can really help us feel better. So here's a big long list of some of the research that I used here if you want to check it out. And I just want to say thank you. And we're going to come to questions at the end. So let's go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing. I think I saw some chats and okay, no worries. So so yes, I do see a kind of direct messaging me. Somebody had some trouble seeing the play, seeing the presentation. So I apologize for that. I hope everybody else could see okay. And I got another question for type. So for the bowel movements, type 4, that middle ground, right? Yes, that is the kind of the gold standard of what you want your bowel movements to typically look like. Normal-ish. It's like kind of like a sausage, right? Or a snake. It's long. And you also wanted to kind of just be aware of like how it comes out, in the sense of like, let's just be honest here, right? If you're really pushing and you're straining, that's a lot of stress on the system. That tells me right there that something is off: water, fiber, something, movement. And so you want it to be something that your body's like, oh, it's time to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go to the bathroom, and it's going to release. Not always perfectly, I get it, but yes, smooth, soft, round edges, not like tons of little balls in there or tons of hard or just coming out in general, right? So that's kind of the middle there. Um, oh, that's a good question. I'm going to come back to your 20-gram question, because I'm not sure if that, what the 20 grams is in reference to. So if you want to type in, just let me know, Peter, the 20 grams. But the magnesium supplement, that's a good one. So magnesium is for different things and for different reasons. So there's magnesium oxide, there's magnesium sulfate, magnesium citrate, and there's another magnesium form. And they help with different things in the body. So there's a couple of them. The citrate and the sulfide in different forms can help with, oh, okay. Thanks, Peter. Can help with sleep as well as bowel movements. So it depends on what you're on it for. So if you're on it for sleep and you're taking it at night, or you're taking Epsom salt baths, or you're drinking some form of magnesium, sometimes it is used for sleep. Sometimes it is used for to go to the bathroom. So that one's a little hard to say, in the sense of you should be okay. I mean, I would just, obviously talk to your doctor if there's anything wrong. I don't know the history for you, but there's just different reasons. So if you feel that it's helping and it feels good, I know a lot of people are taking magnesium, zinc, and vitamin C right now, I guess, right? Everybody's trying to stay really healthy. That's one of them. You just want to be careful not to like, um, take too much, to overuse or just become in a toxic form with magnesium. But I think most of the supplements that I've seen on the market have been less than about 30 milligrams or so, like that. So if you're taking it for sleep and it feels that it works, it's okay. If you're taking it to go to the bathroom and you're taking it regularly, then that would be one of those things I'd be like, oh, are you taking it because you don't, you feel constipated, something like that. So I would be careful for that reason alone. So you probably are okay. In general, just taking a magnesium supplement. But again, check with your doctor, or you can even check with me offline. That's fine too. No worries about that. Okay. Okay, good, Peter. That was the 20 grams of fiber. So yeah, I want you to take more. But again, if you're just starting out in your typical American diet, you can start with the recommended 25 or somewhere in there, 30 grams, right? Slowly make your way up to that. Again, don't start overnight tomorrow going crazy. Slowly. You don't want your digestive system to be like, what the heck? And then all of a sudden you're diarrhea probably and stomach upset. So slowly make your way into that. It took me years to get up to the craziness that I like to eat 50, 60, 70. I can eat 80 grams of fiber and it does not bother my body at all because it's used to it. But again, that took years to get to. So take it in stride and just know that, like, whole foods, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, right? Look at the bread, the pasta, the rice. Those are the big ones, right? We're all eating white rice, white bread, white pasta, not enough beans and lentils, and not enough vegetables. So if we can switch some of that, or majority of it, doesn't have to be always, right? You can still have some white rice, you can still have sushi, but it's like, can you do the majority of what you buy at home? Can you make it whole grains? That is a great question. And it's funny, I was thinking about that, Nick, in the sense of, some people always tell me, well, whenever I eat beans, whenever I eat broccoli, I always get bloated. Two things I would say to that is, one, it depends on how often you're eating it too, I think, because if, like, I feel like a lot of times with Americans, we'll eat like, I don't know, beans and rice or beans and hot dogs, right? We eat it like a specific way. And then most of the other days we're not eating a lot of it. So all of a sudden our body's like, oh, we just ate like a cup of beans. That's a lot for our digestive system because we don't do it often. So normally I have people start with about a quarter of a cup of beans and lentils or daily, somewhere in the diet, somehow about a quarter of a cup, about a half of a cup if you're used to it. And then slowly over time, it does get better because your body builds the bacteria gets used to eating that. I will say on the side, there are people that will just always have issues or trouble digesting beans, lentils, and they are much more sensitive to this. And if you find that you're one of them, no matter what you do, and you've tried eating it every day for, I don't know, however long, couple of weeks or a month, and it just, no matter, even if a small amount, you have trouble with it and you always feel gassy and bloated, then again, maybe one, you can cook them a little bit more, eat less of them. I don't like to like taking gas X or the bloated, like the gas X kind of pills are to help you release that. You can also try a probiotic for a couple of weeks to just kind of gen up your, boost up your system, and then slowly incorporate over time. Or just go, okay, you know what, I do the best I can. When I eat them, I just, doesn't matter. But I think it's just because you just don't eat them off, not you, but just in general, we don't eat them often enough, consistently, and variety, to give our system get our system to it. I don't know if that helps, but hopefully that helps kind of make a little more sense of that. Hopefully I answered your questions. I'm not sure if anybody else has any other questions. If you do need a little bit more help or want to talk about this and more, again, reach out to me, reach out to the club. They know how to get in touch with me. If you're like, oh, I don't know the email, it's just ellisbrandee@gmail. So my name reversed. And this is something that's really important, especially now with our immune systems, with becoming, just in this world that we're living in, right? Let's be honest, with COVID, with everything going on, move your body, eat 80-20, eat as healthy as you can for as much as you can. And, try to do the best you can, drink your water, stay hydrated, make reminders on your phone, whatever it is that you need, buy different foods at the grocery store, switch it up, get inspired, and really do the best you can, honestly. So I hope that helps everyone, gives you a little bit better idea. I know that was very in-depth and kind of like a lot of information. So we are going to post this on YouTube after this. So if you want to look at this again, if you want to review it or reach out and show it to other people so that they can learn and get healthier or feel better, this might be some helpful information to them as well. So I just want to thank everyone, and I hope that this was good for you and help you learned a lot. So have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.